I finished tonight with possibly the least shocking story and the least shocking development. Donald Trump is already moonwalking. Donald Trump is already moonwalking from pulling troops out of Syria immediately. Are we shocked? Is anybody shocked? I got to admit, I mean, I was cautiously optimistic, but I'm not shocked whatsoever at this development. Because Donald Trump, honestly, he talked the talk on the campaign trail, and then he bombed Syria twice. He talked the talk on the campaign trail, and then he gave more troops to Afghanistan. He talked the talk on the campaign trail, and then he increases United States involvement in Yemen. So Donald Trump, he says he's an isolationist. He says he's, America first, but seems that whenever he dangles the fruit of getting out of these wars, he pulls right back. He pulls right back. Pentagon officials told President Donald Trump that his order to withdraw troops from Syria within 30 days was physically impossible without significant risk to U.S. forces, multiple informed sources tell CNN, and the new 120-day timeline is not an example of anything but reality, logistics, and physics. Despite this fact, Trump administration officials are casting the new timeline as a slowdown and an example of President Trump being reasonable after hearing pushback from the Pentagon and allies such as Senator Lindsey Graham. Quote, I said, I never said that I'm going to rush out, the president told Fox News in an interview that ran Monday. Administration officials told reporters that the president was now granting the military several months for the withdrawal, while Graham told journalists Sunday, quote, I think we're slowing things down in a smart way. I think we're in a pause situation where we are reevaluating what's the best way to achieve the president's objective of having people pay more and do more. In truth, the sources say, the 120-day timeline that's being reported as a slowdown is not a slowdown in any way. It's the minimal timeline the military needs to even execute the abrupt and sudden order in a safe and orderly manner. And by the way, CNN's website right now is basically regurgitating propaganda from the military. You can get troops out of Syria in quicker than 120 days. Now, you could argue whether that's smart, whether it's smart, whether it's not smart, whether it's dangerous, whether it's reasonable. You certainly could get the military out of Syria in less than 30 days, in less than 120 days. You can. But what CNN, the corporate media, does, they are essentially an extension of the military, so they just report whatever the military tells them. The reality behind the schedule is just the latest example of administration officials reeling from a decision they believe to be a potentially devastating mistake, one that provoked a more negative response than the president had anticipated, including the registrations of his widely respected Secretary of Defense. These sources, who would only speak on background so as to avoid the ire of the president and or avoid further administration chaos, note that Trump's original decision was impulsive. On a phone call with Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president suddenly said the U.S. would get out of Syria as soon as possible. I ain't going to read the rest. You get the point. So, I got news for you, folks. I got news for you. There's no way in hell that the United States military ain't going to drag its feet. And 120 days is going to turn into 600 days, which is going to turn into a year. And before you know it, we're going to be in Syria for the next 10 years. Maybe 20. This is all a smokescreen. Because Trump, and I told his supporters when I was on the campaign trail and I was covering the campaign for the Young Turks, I told his supporters he could tell you whatever populist thing you want to hear. He's as much a cog of the corporate establishment oligarchy as Hillary Clinton. He ain't gonna withdraw troops from abroad. He ain't gonna do that because his masters won't let him do it. He called Jeb Bush a puppet on the campaign trail. Of course he was a puppet. He called Hillary Clinton crooked. Yeah, she is. But Donald Trump's not leaving war zones. So now we're at a pause situation. Well, what's going to happen when the media moves on from this, and the media moves on to the next shiny object. Maybe it's a new development with Robert Mueller's investigation. Maybe it's a new development with other criminal liability as the Kremlin turns saga. Maybe it's another development. Another candidate runs for office, announces her run for president. He or she's run for president. There's going to be no pressure on Trump then to actually follow through with what he said he was going to do and withdraw troops in Syria, because all the attention is going to be on domestic politics and the Russian boogeyman. So, I'm sorry to say, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Hold on. I am still alive. Can you call me back? Okay. I'm not surprised, and I don't believe that this is going to happen in 120 days. I don't think it's going to happen in 500 days. I don't even think it's going to happen this year. I honestly would be surprised if it happens while Trump is president at this point. I don't think Donald Trump. I think it was we're moving troops immediately out of Syria. Now we're in a pause situation, and God forbid, by the way, God forbid, I don't like that Donald Trump is meeting with Lindsey Graham in the White House. You want to know why? He has not named a new defense secretary. David, you're right. He will get spanked by Lockheed Martin. He will get spanked by Boeing. He has not named a new defense secretary, and he's sitting there meeting with Lindsey Graham, who is basically carrying on for his, dead lover, John McCain. Lindsey Graham is pretty much Dick Cheney on defense. Lindsey Graham is John McCain on defense. Lindsey Graham is, he's pretty much the captain of the neocon club. And I think you watch for that. You watch for that. I am very, very, very worried about Lindsey Graham meeting with Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham, frankly, seems to be dictating Donald Trump's decisions on Syria. And by the way, this has a ripple effect, because if Donald Trump is nice viewer count, hey Kimberly, it was at 350 before YouTube randomly got rid of 100 of my viewers. So thank you. It was at Donald Trump, when he pauses on withdrawing troops from Syria, that is a domino effect in Afghanistan. Because remember, Donald Trump was talking about removing half of the troops from Afghanistan. Well, if he's not going to remove 2,000 troops from Syria, what makes you think he's going to remove any troops from Afghanistan? Donald Trump is going to focus on his fake war at the border, not the real wars that we shouldn't be fighting abroad. He wants to put all of his money down. He wants to die on the sword at the border and pretend that there's, a systemic, threat and caravans of enemies and brown people and Muslims and Mexicans. That's the war that he's trying to sell to his people. He's not serious about removing troops from Syria, Afghanistan, ending U.S. involvement in Yemen, and I will be happy to have egg on my face if he proves me wrong. I don't think he is going to prove me wrong, because he's already moonwalking. He's already moonwalking. So I'll keep covering it, because frankly, the media is not covering it. Oh, the media loved it. Oh my God, the media was in hysterics. They were in hysterics when Donald Trump said he's taking troops out of Syria. You notice how they're not exactly covering that he's deciding to keep the troops in Syria for the time being? They don't want you to know. They just want that to happen underneath the veil. They don't want to cover that. They're happy about it, but they don't want to draw attention to the fact that Donald Trump is doing their bidding. Because, by the way, Wolf Blitzer, he works for the defense industry too. All of these corporate journalists, they all work for Boeing. They all work for Raytheon. Hell, you have U.S. military commercials on CNN and MSNBC. Let me tell you something. The American people, the number one fear they should have is not Russian trolls on Facebook. It should be CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, the Daily Beast, all of these pretend journalists that just put out propaganda and propaganda. That's why we need a status coup.